It's something that every professional should be practicing every day at work. But prompt engineering is not the end game. It is a temporary phase. Think back to the 80s. The only way that people could use computers was to type commands into a black screen, and they had to do that from memory. But then over time, we started to build more natural interfaces. We had icons that we could click, devices that we could talk to. And AI is really on that same path. And so that's why in this video, we're talking about prompt optimizers. They are the bridge. They are going to do some of the heavy lifting of the formatting and the structure, but they also will teach you how to think more clearly about your own instructions. Over the next few years, AI tools will keep getting easier to use. They're going to be better at understanding what you mean and figuring out how to help you achieve it. So the need for those highly specialized prompt engineering techniques won't be as big of a deal as that machine partner starts to do more of the heavy lifting to interpret your intent. But I don't want you to misread that as an excuse to just sit back, because the long-term skill that's always going to be in demand is the ability for you to communicate really well with AI, to take your problem or task or a complex project and express it in a way that a machine can follow. To do that with your heart and your judgment and your creativity, which are the things that no tech could ever replace. So today I want to talk to you about 3 prompt optimizers, one from OpenAI, and then 2 that you can plug into whatever chat app that you're using, whether that's ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, Perplexity, or anything else. So there's 4 kind of failure modes that are happening right now that are frustrating people with their prompts. And the first one is that their intent is muddy. Every prompt that you write starts with your intent. And if our intent is as simple as, I need advice on my resume, well, that's easy. But the reality is most of us work jobs where things can get complex and multi-layered. Half of the time, we don't even know the outcome that we're chasing. So we end up not really knowing what it is that we want the model to do. Which brings us to number 2, which is that the actual writing of our prompts is not sharp. We've been trained to do academic writing or copywriting or creative writing, but we're not used to writing in a way that a machine can understand. We're almost having to learn this new kind of like in-between language. It's half computer code, but then it's half human speak. And so what happens is we're either too vague, or maybe we're too short or too wordy, which when we're too wordy, that causes cognitive overload for the model. The word choice, the model cannot always interpret that in a useful way. Research is showing that a single word, or even just like where you put a comma, it can swing the outcome. Third is structure. We don't always know what sections we're supposed to include in our prompt and what order makes sense. And the advice out there is kind of like all over the place, and that leaves us even more confused. Before we send a prompt, we also rarely think about how it might fail. We don't really spot what are the contradictions or what are the ways that this prompt could misfire. We have no guardrails in place, so then we get surprised whenever it goes sideways. Prompt optimizers fix all of this right away. They clarify your intent, they sharpen your wording, they structure your prompt, and they can anticipate the failures, and so your thinking now can be executed reliably. So the first example I'm going to show you is OpenAI's built-in prompt optimizer. So down here at the bottom, notice the link where it says prompt optimizer will apply best practices to your prompt. When I click on that, you will see the official GPT guidance. And it is super technical, but the good news is you don't even really have to read all of this, because instead you can just paste your idea or your existing prompt into this prompt text box and then just click optimize. So while it's working, you're gonna see optimizing prompt. And by the way, this is available to anybody who has an OpenAI or a ChatGPT account. And once it is ready, you can click review changes. Now red shows what it cut out of your prompt. Green shows what it added. So for example, a cut might be like you were unclear or you had redundant phrasing that it would have to cut some of it out. But then additions would be something like maybe you forgot to put the style constraints or you forgot to clarify the role. So it is looking at your prompt and it's figuring out how it can make your prompt perform better. You can toggle review changes on and off. And when it's on, you'll see those detailed notes that explain every edit that it gave you. And that's the part that I think can make you a really sharp thinker. It can make you a better prompt engineer because you're learning why your prompt got improved. I'm gonna switch it back though, and there you can see the final version. In the top right, you can click copy, and then you can grab the whole thing. Now you're ready to go paste it into your chat. And by the way, there is no such thing as a perfect prompt. So just because you went in here and optimized this prompt, you still need to test it out. So if it doesn't perform well, you can feel free to go back to the optimizer and tell it what changes you would like for it to make. Sometimes it'll take me 2 or 3 iterations before I get my prompts just right. Next, I'll show you some optimizers that you can use directly inside of your chats. So these are what we call meta prompts because they are prompts that write prompts. The first one we're gonna look at is called the Lyra prompt. Now, the original creator of the Lyra is not officially known, but it is widely believed that this is somebody who had originally posted this on Reddit, and then it just went totally viral because it really does work like magic. So here is they call it a 4D methodology, and it works in these 4 steps. Deconstruct your request, diagnose the weaknesses, develop improvements, and deliver the final version. Next, let's look at optimization techniques. Foundation covers the basics: role, context, output format. Advanced is going to add extras like chain of thought reasoning and few shot examples if for some reason you would have left those out. That is where there is now like a toolkit. So if you left something out of your prompt, AI can pull from that when needed. Operating modes. You have multiple operating modes. So detail mode is what would get automatically triggered if you have like a really high stakes or complex task or project. And what it'll do is it'll ask you some clarifying questions and go a lot deeper. But then basic mode is just for your simpler requests. They are just quick and clean without having to over-engineer your prompt, which is very nice. So it covers both simple and complicated stuff. Then right here under response formats, you have simple requests are going to get an improved prompt with some key changes, and then complex ones will include the techniques that were used and even a pro tip. So it'll give you a tip on what you could have done better. Finally, at the bottom is the welcome message that just ensures that Lyra introduces itself properly. Okay, so now let's run it. The first thing that you'll see is the welcome message. And what I'll do is I'll paste in a deliberately vague prompt. And notice how Lyra immediately gets to work. It starts to break down my prompt and gives detailed feedback, just like that OpenAI optimizer that we tried earlier. So here's the bad prompt that we are testing. The person says they've got a work presentation in an hour and they are, quote, kind of freaking out. It's about sales numbers, but they don't know what to include or how much detail to go into. They don't want it boring, but they also don't want it to look like they're trying too hard. And then it ends with, can you just help me fix it fast? Okay, now that's a little bit exaggerated, but that is exactly the kind of vague and often conflicting request that an optimizer like Lyra is designed to help you untangle. So even though that was kind of a mess of a prompt, here is what Lyra did. First, it deconstructed it. It pulled out the core intent, which it figured out was that we want to fix this presentation for work on sales numbers and we want to do it quickly, plus the key entities and constraints. Then under diagnose, it spotted the gaps. So you didn't have an audience, no slide count, no clear goal. And then in develop, now it starts to fix it for you. It's assigning itself the role of a presentation coach and choosing techniques for tone, constraints, and time pressure. And then here is the final optimized prompt. Notice how it introduces placeholders. That is intentional. The original request didn't specify the audience. So is it leadership? Is it the sales team? Is it clients? That matters. Same with the goal. Are they reporting results? Are they trying to motivate the team? Are they pitching some kind of growth? Those gaps are now clearly marked. One placeholder for audience, one for goal, and then one for slide count. So this is now forcing you to be a little bit more clear, and it's helping the user to structure their thinking before the AI even responds. Look here at the format. It doesn't just say, help me. It lays out a step-by-step of what the AI should do. So help decide what to include, suggest ways to make it engaging, give tips to sound confident under pressure. So now, the user who gave you very little to work with, all they have to do now is copy and paste this really excellent prompt out of Lyra, paste it into a new chat, and they're ready for their presentation in no time. So I made mine into a custom GPT, and that way every time that I open it, I don't have to paste in that whole Lyra prompt. It's already built in. If you want to try this for yourself, I'd recommend that you do the same so that you don't have to worry about pasting it in every time. And by the way, again, this is not my prompt. Credit goes to the person who invented Lyra. I'm leaving it there for you in the description. The third optimizer is called Val, and she's similar to Lyra, but she's designed with a little bit different type of structure. So step one is the diagnosis phase. Val is going to score your draft for clarity, context, accuracy, and efficiency in a simple little table. And then comes the rewrite phase. So she's only going to edit the parts that need fixing so that your original intent stays intact. And every session ends with a quick teacher's note. That way she's not cleaning up your prompts, she's teaching you to improve them over time. Another key difference is that Val has been programmed to never execute a task. She's only going to optimize prompts. So if you went in there and you started talking about chocolate chip cookies, she will never, under any circumstances, go researching recipes or giving you directions. She is supposed to ignore the content and just help you to rewrite the prompt of what you were talking about. Now today you learned 3 prompt optimizers, and I don't care if you use these or if you write your own. You can go out and also find hundreds of other optimizers online. But what's important is don't just use one. Always run your prompts, especially when you're working on something that's really important. Run your prompts through at least 2 or 3 different optimizers. There is no such thing as a perfect prompt. Your outputs are going to vary by run. They're going to vary by model, even as companies are constantly updating things in the background. That variation is what makes this fun. It's the experimentation. That is the goal. And so each one of these optimizers is going to tackle your prompt in a different way. And every time you run it in different models, you'll get something slightly different. So use them all and keep track of what works and watch how your prompts start to get sharper.